Welcome to Your Healing Era, a podcast for artists, creatives, healers, anyone living outside the traditional mold who's searching beyond the conventional forms of healing. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and rate the podcast. Thanks for being here, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to another episode. I am really excited for today's guest. We've been trying to schedule it for a while because she's been in and out of retreats. Let me introduce to you Augusta Hopkins. She is a meditation teacher, a Dharma practitioner. I guess I'll leave the rest for our conversation for you to learn more. So thanks for being here, Augusta.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So you just came out of a retreat. Where were you?
This one was up at Cloud Mountain in southern Washington, outside of a really small town called Castle Rock, at a retreat center. It was offered exclusively by Alexis Santos.
So how are you doing? What's alive for you?
Feeling really nourished by this growing new approach to practice. So Alexis Santos, Andrea Fella also, and others are lay students of Sayadaw U Tejaniya, who's a Burmese monk. So he's still in Myanmar, and as many listeners will know, there's a big war going on. There's been going on for some years now. And so we're really fortunate to have some teachers who have received those teachings directly from Sayadaw U Tejaniya, who can continue to offer them more broadly, in not just in the United States. And that approach is deeply rooted in the Satipatthana Sutta, which you and I can talk about a little more in a minute. And it supports, promotes, and allows for a continuity of awareness in daily life. Like, that's a focus of it, rather than a side thing. Oh, you're not on retreat. You need to keep practicing. Oh, guess sit for 20, 50, an hour a day, an hour and a half, twice a day. And I know in our busy urban lives, that can slip away. And even if we can sit in the morning and the evening for 45 minutes in formal practice, there's so many more hours of the day. And this approach, out of the gate, it's, light touch of awareness. And then can you be aware from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep? And so the retreat has that focus. And so when you come out of retreat, it's the same instructions. It's the same practice. And so that's feeling very alive for me these days.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I think about different styles of meditation. There's so many different kinds of meditation, from single-pointed concentration and mantras, and like different traditions from different people and different teachers. And I like the idea of the continuity of awareness. For myself, I find that the most difficult places to keep the continuity is actually when other people are involved in the picture, because on retreat, you're not interacting with other people. Like, I can have awareness as I'm doing my bed and as I'm doing my meditation or as I'm chopping my vegetables. But then when other people are in the picture, then it's a whole other thing. The relational field is something I think about a lot.
Yeah, I can relate to that very, very well. And as I know you know, but maybe some listeners don't know, the Satipatthana Sutta is a teaching of the Buddha. Sati is usually translated as mindfulness, but can also be translated as awareness. And Patthana is foundation or establishment. And then Sutta, of course, is a training or discourse. So it's the teaching on the establishment and the foundation of awareness or of mindfulness. And there's 4 parts. So you begin with the body. For many of us, that's the easiest place to begin. And the next section is feeling tone. The Pali word is Vedana. So noticing, being interested in, curious about pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Like, what is this experience like? What is this direct experience of the moment in this conversation with you, or as we're making our bed or chopping our veggies, eating our chocolate? What is this experience like? What's the feeling home? What's the Vedana? Noticing. Because without the noticing, we're swept away by it. We're immediately pushing it away, aversion, or chasing after greed, or checking out in delusion, just naturally, just a conditioned arising. And with the noticing, there's freedom, because the noticing isn't in that thing, in the greed or in the aversion, in the liking and the not liking. It's like, it's neutral. It's just noticing. And then the third is chitta, or heart mind. And as the heart mind system begins to be able to notice the state of the heart mind, the emotions, the thoughts, the process of the heart mind, that can be more available in the relational field, so that it's here with me now as I'm speaking to you. There's also this light touch checking in. How are you? How you doing? I got you. Like whatever that language might be. And then the fourth foundation is Dhamma with a lowercase d, or Dhamma's all conditioned phenomena, everything that's arising and passing, which includes everything you just named. And then every experience that you might have in your life is like, oh, this too can be known. And in the knowing, just in the knowing, there's freedom, right? We don't need to make the moment different than it is. If we could do that, we would have done it a long time ago, right? It doesn't work that way. And as we cultivate the interest in knowing, the wisdom does its own job. Metta, love, does its own job. We get out of the way. It's kind of amazing. It's the accompaniment that's so powerful. Not like oh, I got this, let me work harder and harder and harder and harder. I don't know about you, but I tried that for a really long time.
So these are the four foundations of mindfulness. I was actually going to ask you about it, so I'm glad that we just started right off the bat with this. I've been meditating for a while because we met on retreat.
On a long retreat, a 6-week long silent retreat.
Yeah, which for me was the first long retreat, but it was so cool for me to meet people who are like, oh yeah, no big deal. I do these long retreats all the time. I'm like, yes, that's so inspiring. Because in my world, people, some people might think like I'm crazy, or like, why would you do that? So it's so cool to meet other people who, for them, retreat is like, part of way of life. It's like so nourishing. But I encounter a lot of people that don't even understand why they would meditate, or they think that they can't meditate, or they're doing it wrong because they have this concept like that the mind needs to be still, and then they sit to meditate and the mind is anything but still. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I also interact with that quite a bit. There's this misperception there's so many different parts there, but there's this misperception in the world that when we're meditating, or in order to meditate, the mind needs to be still or quiet, or that we should stop thinking. And it's like, good bleep and luck with that. Like, that is just not how it goes. It's the mind's job. There's a quote from Jack Kornfield that can be supportive there. It's that just as the mouth secretes saliva, the mind secretes thoughts. Right? And so as we come to be interested in that process, curious about the residue of the thinking experience, the awareness of what's happened in the body along with the thoughts, we're in presence. And that can be an approach. So there's lots of different barriers. They don't know that it exists. They think it's kind of weird. Or maybe they know that it exists, but they don't think it's weird. But the structure of their lives doesn't allow for that. It doesn't have the time for meditation, or the time for retreat, or the finances, like you have a 9-to-5 job or a family, lots and lots of things, or can't afford it. There's lots of things that can make it not possible to go on retreat. And because the conditions are sufficient for me to go on retreat, and I'm committed my life to this path of practice and to sharing the practice, I feel like one of the opportunities I have and responsibilities is to share the practice, to help it to become more available for more people in different ways. So lately I've been thinking of myself as a Dharma bee. So I'm like out there collecting the Dhamma, going on retreat, practicing, reading things, meeting with teachers, and coming back to the city. I live in the middle of San Francisco, like in the city, and spreading the honey. I get to digest, and then it comes out Gussie style. And it comes out with a lot of expletives, and it comes out in a way that I think it can be accessible to a certain segment of the population. Like, I'm not for everyone. I'm not going to be for everyone. Like, that's not the goal. And I've been interacting and I think bringing relief to more people who are not trying to meditate, not trying to go on retreat, and yet they're suffering, as we all are, right? One of the primary, maybe the primary premise of the teachings of Buddha is that there is suffering and freedom from suffering. And one of the great realizations for me has been that it's not about trying to get the external conditions the way that I want them to be. That actually doesn't relieve suffering, because then I just try to fix it again and again. And there's always something that can be adjusted, but recognizing and embracing what's happening inside of me, that's where the freedom lies. And the only way that I can access that is by cultivating the ability to rest into the present moment, to actually be here with the simple activities of life.
Yes. I got to tell you something. Yesterday was my birthday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. And I had a beautiful day. But towards the end of the day, I kind of started getting depressed. I was facing the concepts I had about where I thought I'd be, or where I think I should be or want to be, and where I actually am, and kind of really frustrated with different aspects of my life that are not where I want them to be. And I'm aware how that is causing myself suffering, because it's not like I think like, oh, there's a should and like supposed to and all that, but there were things I was hoping for myself. And I think I heard you talk on a video that you have on YouTube about like acceptance or perfectionism, or like those kind of things, and like how we just like cause ourselves suffering. And I'm totally aware that I'm just like, by dwelling there, I'm just like missing the opportunity of like appreciating the moment. And that comes from me, I am meditating. I am like, I do have a spiritual practice, and yet I still fall into these loops. Do you have any advice? Because I'm sure some people might relate to my problem. Hey, I'm going to pause for just a minute because I really got to tell you about this. If you're feeling called to go deeper on this work, and if you're a woman who loves making music or exploring sound, writing songs, and expressing yourself creatively, I'm leading a retreat in Mexico this summer. It's an intimate, immersive week of embodied healing and creative expansion. We'll have a professional recording studio on site. We'll be writing, producing, dancing, practicing yoga, meditating, swimming in the ocean, all the things. So really living inside our bodies and inside our art. If this is calling you, all the details are below. We have limited spots and we have early bird pricing, so go check it out. And if Mexico isn't happening for you right now, I also have a free nervous system regulation tool that you can explore at home in your own time. And if you're ready for something more structured, my full nervous system sorcery course is also available. Everything is linked below. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I can certainly relate to your problem. First, which birthday did you celebrate yesterday?
Which, like, how old I am? I just turned 37.
37. I ask because I remember my 39th birthday and I remember my 29th birthday so clearly, the suffering I was creating for myself with these ideas of where I thought I would be at that stage of my life, these notions. It was hell. I mean, my life wasn't bad. Your life isn't bad. You're a professional musician. Like, how many people, the expression is how many people would kill for that opportunity? I'm not trying to say that, but how many people fantasize about being a professional musician, actually supporting themselves and earning a living, touring, right? For some people, that's a dream come true, and maybe for an earlier version of yourself.
There's definitely for an earlier version of myself, but I find myself living like someone else's dream almost, you know?
Yeah, because you're changing, right? And we're all changing. That's another thing that's really helpful to recognize is we're each of us in a constant state of change. And I'm definitely going to come back and answer that question because I have lots to say about it. And I want to tell people about this a little bit because it's also a thing that brought me a lot of freedom. It's my experience that we're with ourselves 24/7. Right? Like you can't actually get away from yourself. You can like skip out and not pay attention for sure. We do it all the time. And yet we're still there all the time, 24/7 to a certain extent. And so it's hard to recognize if we're not intending to recognize that we're in a constant state of change. But if you look at a photograph of yourself, even from a few days ago, or video, now we have all these videos, it's like, oh yeah, I don't look like that anymore. And if you go a few years or you go many years, it's very obvious. And so I think in a moment of suffering, it can be helpful to remember this constant change that's occurring. And that thought, oh, I'm living someone else's dream. Yeah, that someone else was me, an earlier iteration of Noga, right? Like it's an earlier iteration of me. And great. Can there be a way that we can appreciate that sense of satisfaction? Like, oh, I had a goal and I met it, and that's great. And now there's a next. And that that's a natural part of this unfolding and constant state of change. There's nothing wrong with it. There might be some suffering involved in it. And it's a conditioned experience of the heart mind, this perpetual dissatisfaction. So the Buddha put that forward as dukkha. The first noble truth is that there is dukkha. Dukkha can be translated as unsatisfied, unreliable, stress, inconstancy. The most common Western translation is suffering, but that misses the nuance of the word. And having this great success as a professional musician and being dissatisfied, that's dukkha, right? It's like a perfect exploration of dukkha. And maybe 2 days ago, there wasn't as much suffering, but yesterday, because we have this anniversary that we put meaning on, there's this extra, I'm dissatisfied. And to tie that back into perfectionism, I've played with perfectionism so much for so long. I didn't even recognize that I was a perfectionist. But I came into Dhamma practice about 20 years ago. Within months, had the opportunity to go to Plum Village and practice directly with Thich Nhat Hanh. It was a 3-week retreat at Plum Village and at the other Plum Village practice centers around the world. Those retreats are not silent retreats. They're retreats where you're interacting with people. And so it's a very different approach, also quite effective. And I remember on that retreat, or sometime shortly thereafter, as I practiced in Sangha in community of Plum Village practitioners, I came to recognize there was a story running my life underneath everything, this core false belief. Just tell me what you want me to do so I can do it right, so everything will be okay. And I've gotten a lot of freedom from that, and yet it's still there low grade. A funny example of that. So the other day, coming out of retreat, re-engaging with technology, there's someone who's trying to interview me, many people. She's not trying to just interview me, but many people, and I'm one of the people. And scheduling was challenging, shocking. And I'd offered a couple times, we're doing this via text message and coming back out of retreat, getting my phone on. There's a response from her saying, this one time is good, but we need another time because she wanted to have 2 sessions. And I felt my whole system freeze. Like, I don't know what time to offer her. And it's like, okay, like, it's so not a big deal, right? It's really not. And the system thought, I need to find the perfect time. I was like, wow. Because of the container of retreat, I could see this process in the heart mind, in chitta, of this delusion. There's a right time. And if I don't get just the right time, it's going to be a disaster. Like, I'm not worthy to exist if I can't get it just right. It's so deep and it's so diluted.
So the story, just to make sure I got, like, the story is that, like, you just have to get it right.
These days, I can see very clearly that there's a false belief that there's a right and that I better find it. I better figure it out. I better do it, or else I'm going to die.
Wow.
It's like, what? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I'll repeat how I saw the story 15, 20 years ago and had practiced with it for all this time, which is, tell me, right? Looking to someone else, another human being, as a child, it was my parents, tell me what you want me to do. You over there, whoever you are, not me. You tell me what you want me to do so that I can do it right and everything will be okay. And as a kid, it was like, my dad's not going to rage at me and my mom won't withhold her love. And I needed my parents to be happy with me when I was really young because they were taking care of me. But I'm 53. My mom is dead. My dad's on the East Coast. Like, they're not taking care of me. Yeah, but I looked at someone else. Like, my husband wasn't happy with me about something yesterday. And like, there's a part inside of me, someone would say, you're my inner child, the little girl. But there's a part of me that gets so scared.
That makes me think about the power of retreat to actually get to know yourself and get to these deep patterns. I got nothing against conventional, like, talk therapy and all that, and various forms of therapy. But I often think that a lot of modalities stay on kind of surface level, and the power, at least for me, the power of meditation, and especially going on a retreat to, like, meditate, sit with yourself for longer periods without distractions, is being able to see those deeper patternings. Because I always think about it as, like, okay, like, this is, like, let's say this desk right here is like the level of between conscious and unconscious thoughts. And then we sit to meditate. So if you have a busy life, you sit to meditate, and then you slowly start to quiet down, and, like, certain things start to float to the surface. Oh, the grocery list, right? Like, the thing that happened yesterday, the thing that has to happen tomorrow. And, like, you start to go below the surface, and the deeper you go, or for the longer periods of time you go, you have an opportunity to go to, like, deeper subconscious or unconscious beliefs and things that are really running your life below the surface. Sometimes I call it, like, sleeping volcanoes, because they're, like, on the bottom of the ocean. And I often equate meditation retreats to plant medicine. I don't know if you've experimented with that, because it has, like, the potential to erupt a sleeping volcano of something, of a pattern that is really kind of in the back of your being, running your life, like what you just described.
Yeah. One of the things about that I've really appreciated the whole time that this sleeping volcano has been conscious is that I've seen so many different manifestations from it, or of it, like different ways that it's erupting. And when I'm able to see, oh, that behavior stems to this, oh, that behavior stems to this, and I see all these offshoots that are all coming back to this delusion that there's a right and I'm supposed to figure it out. And if I can just do it right, I'll be happy forever. every time I see that it's all stemming from this one core false belief, I feel so much appreciation and a little bit more freedom and motivation or excitement that I can practice just tending to this one thing, and that has so many beneficial ramifications. I feel like it's possible to have a misperception that there's 7 or 100 or 5 different unskillful ways that we're behaving, and that they each have their own individual root, and I have to tend to each of these things. And my experience has been actually they're all coming back to the one thing. And so as I tend to that one thing, all of the behaviors, all of the responses, all of those habit energies or habit patterns are resolved or come to be resolved.
Yeah, and so much of this practice is about self-knowledge. Like so much of the time that when people trigger me, or when I encountered people who are difficult in my life, a lot of the times I'm just like, oh my God, I just wish that they knew themselves. I wish that they saw this pattern that is causing them to behave in this way, or this, causing them all the suffering, and as a byproduct, me too. But
Yeah, no,
it's just like,
exactly.
know yourself. Know yourself not on an intellectual level, but on an experiential level. Like, have you sat with yourself?
Yeah, and our society really doesn't support or encourage that, particularly today with this industrialized, digitized, fast paced life, this distraction economy. There's not a lot of support or encouragement to be with yourselves. There's a lot of money put into those devices that distract us from being with ourselves. And I often think that if we were able to be present to the moment, and I just noticed that my right thumb is stroking my left thumb. So if I can be present to that sensation, you can play along with me if you want. Just like feel that little thing, right? It gets so subtle. I know I'm going to be like, oh, she's doing da 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 da. Just that little thing, it's so soothing to my nervous system. And the nervous system gets to receive that. When we're able to notice things like that, to appreciate that we turn on the tap and it's potable water in this country, most places, or we look out the sky, look out the window, and there's a sky to be seen that's blue or gray, more and more. That's not the case, right? It's filled with smoke or fire or smog. But sometimes it's clear and beautiful, or we get to watch the sunset or see a tree, creek, or the ocean, or even just be fortunate enough to be sighted. If we can actually be in that experience, be in the mundane experiences of our life as you began making your bed or chopping the vegetables, if we can actually be there with it, the being there with it, the fully experiencing it is fulfilling and nourishing. And it seems to me at the moment anyway, I've been having this belief lately that that's the antidote. Of course, it's one antidote. There's probably lots of others, but that's the antidote to this time that we're living through of perpetual dissatisfaction. Let me get, and the exploitation and the rape and pillaging of people and minerals and the planet, and just pushing someone else down so I can get up, and cancel culture, and let me just take down the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives that we've built. Let me just take them away because I need that money from the government. take. I need more. I need more. I need more. Whether it's on a political level or a business level or a personal level, when we can take stock of what we have, when we can recognize what we have and be there with it, we're fulfilled and nourished physically and emotionally. And if more and more of us did that, I think the world would be a much better place, a much healthier place, a much more pleasant place to live and be a part of. And fewer people would need medication for depression and anxiety as well, because they would be actually living their lives. And some of us need those supports some of the time. Great. I'm glad they exist. I have a family member who's been medicated for bipolar for more than 50 years. And thank goodness he needed that. It's wonderful. It's not that there's not a place for it. And there's so much suffering that could be avoided by actually being here, noticing what we're seeing and touching, tasting.
Yeah, you're kind of helping me slow down and like feel my chair again, supporting me here. And yeah. So why is it so hard?
There's just constant pressure from the outside. Just like the depression you were feeling yesterday, there's this constant pressure that we should be more than we are. We should have greater impact. We should be taller or shorter or thinner or heavier or stronger or not quite so strong. My calves are too big. I hear women say that to me. I'm like, what? How wonderful that you're strong. Like, whatever, the stupid society, this airbrushed. I was born in 1972. So the environment I grew up in the United States, glossy magazines were really popular. And coming to know that these models were airbrushed and there were so many photographs to get this shot and covered in makeup and anorexic and sick and all of these things, like that was really useful because we're comparing ourselves to something that's not realistic. And now it's so much worse. Instagram filters and everything. We're getting our information through filters. Our information is always coming in through a filter of the mind. And recognizing that filter is happening in the mind can be helpful in leading toward freedom. And that outside world is really bombarding us with false news. I mean, that's part of my thoughts about the why. And then I have more thoughts, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So from a Buddhist perspective, everything is conditioned. Everything. And the more I rest into that and feel that and know that truth in my system, the more freedom I touch. So I offer that as something that might be so helpful for everybody. And the heart is naturally radiant. And the human heart mind is born into the world with this conditioning of greed, aversion, and delusion. And there's also metta, or love. And continuing to try to answer the question, like, why is it like this? Those two things get tangled up in one another. And greed only knows how to greed. And aversion only knows how to averse. So those things, greed, aversion, and delusion is just confused, caught in a belief. They meet metta, and they think that the way to have love or peace or contentment or safety, sukha, is to greed, is to chase after or to avert, to push away or to numb out. They think that's the way to everlasting contentment and peace and happiness because that's the only thing they know how to do. Like a circle can only round. It can't do anything else.
So some people would say like this is like our biological, like this is how animals are. We just want to avoid pain, have pleasure, and energy conservation.
Yes, so we are animals and we are Homo sapiens sapiens. Some people say we're like the top of the animal kingdom or animal chain. We're Homo sapiens sapiens, which means we have the cognitive ability to be aware of these processes. And
Right.
so through that awareness, like sitting with yourself on retreat or on the cushion or in daily life in our activities, we have the capacity to recognize this behavior at play or in momentum. And through that recognition, we actually can get freedom from it. The knowing of it has its own momentum. The knowing, sati, has its own momentum, which brings about space for wisdom and love to start to be the primary actors and to run the show. And greed, aversion, and delusion can rest or go into more dormancy as love and wisdom are guiding.
That's when we understand that that is the way out of suffering as opposed to chasing and grasping and avoiding and pushing away and distracting. Because then we maybe have a choice.
Yeah, yes. And I think that simply seeing the suffering can be enough. We don't have to understand that wisdom and love can run the show or that wisdom and love are running the show in this moment. But simply the awareness of that, we can look back. Oh, that caused suffering. Or in the moment, sometimes when we're lucky, we can catch, oh, this way leads to suffering, or we can see how this is causing suffering. That knowing, oh, it's like this. Remembering, practicing to remember yata, buddha, or things as they've come to be, practicing to remember the conditioned nature of experience. Like, oh, the personalizing it of I'm doing something wrong, I did something wrong, I should be better, can fall away as the wholesome is brought in. So yes, when someone recognizes and understands that metta and love and wisdom can lead or guide or run the show, but you don't have to recognize that to begin to actually experience that.
Mm-hmm. I have I have quite a few more questions I'm really curious about. But you already started touching on the things I was going to ask about. So I want to talk a little bit about metta and gratitude and also wisdom. But I also first want to ask you because I read on your website, but then you just mentioned that you got to practice with Thich Nhat Hanh and be in Plum Village. And on your website, it says that you were ordained by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I'm just curious about that's incredible. He's such was, but still is such an inspiration and powerful, powerful teachings that we received from him. So yeah, what was that like?
I feel very fortunate to have lived at a time that I was able to practice with him directly. His presence was such a transmission, eh, way beyond concepts and ideas. Like you didn't have to know about wisdom or metta. Just be near him and you can feel it, the energy and the calm that's radiating from his being. Today, I firmly believe that's because he was present.
Like so simple, but not so easy.
Yes, so simple, but not so easy. It's amazing how simple it is and how elusive it can be. And I didn't grow up in Thailand or Vietnam or Myanmar or Sri Lanka. I didn't grow up in a Buddhist environment. And I think it's different if you did. And I didn't grow up in Israel either. I grew up on the East Coast of the United States. And the conditioning was the conditioning we've just been talking about. And I think that growing up in an environment, in a culture, prioritizing being rather than prioritizing doing. And the US is so focused on doing and accomplishing and consuming and creating. We measure things in gross domestic product. That just creates more and more suffering and more divide. Yeah. When Thich Nhat Hanh became a monk as a teenager, he was given a book of gathas or short poems to practice with in daily life activities. And he offers many of those to his students. And I practiced with those for many years. And it's only recently that I can really feel the lightness of the touch, of the continuity of awareness, continuity of mindfulness that I think Thich Nhat Hanh was trying to help his students experience. Maybe other students got it sooner than I did. I needed to have the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh and the teachings of Ajahn Chah and the teachings of Sayadaw U Tejaniya, and to be on retreat a lot, and my own Quaker roots, and 15 years in Al-Anon 12-step program and somatic experiencing therapy for more than a decade. Like, I needed lots of support from lots of different directions to feel safe enough to be with myself and to be in the present moment with a light touch so that there could be continuity throughout the day. And these deeper roots, as you call them, these sleeping volcanoes, can be witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's all that they want. They want to be witnessed and seen, acknowledged, and tended to. And when they get that care and attention, they don't have to erupt. Yeah. Yeah. As you said so beautifully and so clearly, it's simple. And because of the conditioning of our various cultural upbringings, it's not easy. We're really going against the stream. And the Buddha, he was going against the stream. He was a radical, eradicating the caste system within the monastic, leaving the opulence of his life and meeting many teachers and following their teachings and getting great deep realization of their teachings and knowing, and they're still suffering. I got to keep going. Just keeping at it. Yeah, another thing from Thich Nhat Hanh that arises to mention, two things. And speaking of conditioning, I remember learning from him so clearly early on. If you look at a plant that isn't doing well, most people would think, okay, we need a little more water, a little less water, a little more sun, a little less sun. What are the conditions that can be changed to nourish the plant so the plant can thrive? We wouldn't blame the plant.
Right.
But this is what we do with ourselves. We just shit all over ourselves, or we should all over ourselves. We beat ourselves up mercilessly. And when we can step back or down or in and remember, oh, it's conditioned. Oh, right, I'm not doing this. It can be so freeing. And then the last thing, or I could say more if you want, but the last thing that's here at the moment that I want to say about Thai, or Tay is maybe a more correct pronunciation. It means teacher. It's like a kind, gentle teacher in Vietnamese with a terrible American pronunciation. Is to put energy into the blossoms and the fruits and the things that we're wanting to grow, and to know that they will leaf out and spread, and through their beauty and nourishment and strength and vitality, the weeds will diminish on their own. We don't need to get in there and be worrying about the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
To
I
nourish the
love that.
wholesome.
That's huge, right? Because we just focus on the suffering so much, especially people like us in the healing arts, in the meditation world. Like, we like see the suffering so clearly, we see the patterns, and then we forget to focus like on the health that is available, on the love and the wisdom that is available.
Yeah, we don't want to become a piece of Swiss cheese. We're not trying to dig out or take away parts of ourselves. It's not ripping it apart. It's not cutting it. You remember Tori did the whole thing about knitting, and when you have a knot that you want to knit you, oh my God. It's not about getting in there and cutting the yarn. We don't want to cut the yarn. We want this whole skein of yarn. And it needs gentleness and care and attention. If you've ever tried to untangle a chain or your earbuds back when people had wired earbuds, like you get in there with tension and it just gets worse and worse. And when we soften, we can see more clearly. And just the softening allows it to untangle on its own, particularly with a chain, right? It's just like the softening it untangles, it dissolves. And so we're not in there doing it. Because if we could do it, we would have done it a long time ago. It's like just not how it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned Tuare. It was so wonderful to have her as one of our teachers on retreat. Um,
Just keep stacking books. Just keep going.
I really want to have her on my podcast, actually. We'll see. We'll see if I can make that happen.
I hope that works out.
Yeah. I remember our moment at the end of retreat with the tahini. For people who are listening, so this was like the end of a 6-week retreat. For some people, it was the end of a 3-month retreat.
Silent retreat.
Silent retreat, silent meditation retreat.
In the winter in Massachusetts.
Yes. In the Magical Retreat Center of Insight Meditation Society. And on the last couple of days, they kind of try to ease you back into the world slowly. So you're not jumping out of, silent meditation straight back to the world. But so there was optional talking to each other at certain spaces, or if you're outside, you're allowed to speak. And actually, I noticed you, Augusta, from the beginning when I got there, and I was sure, I told you that I was sure that you were one of the 3-monthers, because my 6 weeks started on the second half. So you arrive when there's people that have already been meditating for 6 weeks, and because you're so in it, and you're just like you're just delighted at the flowers, and you're always eating outside, and you looked so blissed out, and I was like, this woman. It took me a long time to drop in. I was like, I came from a very, very fast, I came from tour, and it took me a little while to like slow down. And I knew I wanted to talk to you at some point. So then on the last couple of days, I saw you outside, and I approached you and we started talking. I don't know how we started talking about the tahini that they keep serving, and the meals, when they serve tahini, they serve like the raw, tahini base, and it's never like prepared, and how frustrated I am. And you're like, well, why don't you, make it? And I was like, well, now it's like the last day. That was like the second to last day. Then on the last day, it was like lunch again or something. And again, they put this like giant bowl of like that thick raw tahini with like no flavor and stuff. And so, so I went to there's like a little yogi store. There's like, you could grab stuff from it and pay later. And I grabbed like the lemon juice and the things. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a little bowl of proper tahini. And then you saw me. You saw me there, and we were not allowed to talk, but it was like, the last day of retreat. So you're not supposed to approach each other in the dining room, but you just showed up and you brought the olive oil and the salt and pepper to me. And you're like leaning on the counter waiting to see how it is done. And I was just like, I just love that moment so much.
Yeah, that integration time when we begin to reconnect with people, coming back to the beginning of our conversation today, right? It's the social interactions, the relational field where mindfulness goes out the door. At the close of this most recent retreat with Alexis Santos, a couple of times before the end of the retreat, we had the opportunity to practice awareness while speaking. We go for a walk with someone or sit outside. As he was preparing us for that, but he named that eagerness washes away awareness. And I have so known that to be true, recognize that to be true. And we can practice being with ourselves all the time. We can notice the joy and the excitement of making the proper tahini or the frustration of the stuff that's served. And we get to practice. How is it to approach someone to come up to Noga and lean on the counter with the rest of the things that I knew she needed based on our conversation from the previous day, to offer that gift and presence? We can be there with ourselves, or as we're conditioned, mostly not be there with ourselves, completely miss it. But to get curious about what happens inside as we begin to interact with another human being. Powerful area of exploration.
Yeah.
And to not shut any of it out, right? So maybe fear arises, or fear of being judged or judging someone else. And we just meet that like, oh, hi there. Well, that's what's here.
Yeah. There was there was like, we might have to save it. I want to respect the time, and I just see like 7 minutes on the to the hour, and I want to leave a couple minutes for you to tell people at the end also where they can find you, or if you're teaching anything soon that you want to tell them about. But I just want to touch on something. Metta, also known in English as loving kindness, which is refers to a practice, a kind of a meditation practice, is one of my favorite things in the world and is so transformational and healing. And I believe it's the medicine. But I don't think people understand. It seems like for people who haven't had an experience with it, it seems like such a, like, why would anyone do that? That seems like a cheesy thing to use these phrases and do those things. And for those of listening that don't know, metta, loving kindness, is like a practice of practicing loving kindness either towards yourself or towards other beings, often using phrases like, may you be happy, may you be free of suffering, may you be healthy, and so on. What do you have to say?
Practicing metta or cultivating metta is a practice. Metta can be translated as loving kindness or loving friendliness. Metta can be felt in the heart as warmth, as love. Thich Nhat Hanh uses a translation just of the simple word love. And we can practice it. We can cultivate it. Metta is a state of heart. It's a state of mind. And we can wish metta for ourselves, and we can wish metta for all beings. And that's a practice. Sharon Salzberg, one of the founders of Insight Meditation Society, she's so clear to communicate that metta is an intention. It's a cultivation, or the practice as a cultivation or an intention. So we might not feel metta, and we can still incline our hearts, minds in that direction. And as we do that, we touch greater and greater freedom. Just on an intellectual perspective, don't you wish for everyone to be happy and free of suffering? I mean, what if everyone was content? We'd have a completely different world. There wouldn't be that seeking. There wouldn't be all the land grabbing that has happened and continues to happen. There wouldn't be wars. There wouldn't be famine, because there would be enough to go around, because people wouldn't be creating stores for themselves for the future. Content. Can you imagine actually being content? So it can be very powerful to cultivate contentment within ourselves, because then we're more generous and we feel more gratitude and more acceptance and freedom and love. Life is easier if we're not thinking that we need to get X, Y, Z, A, B, C in order to be content. If we instead were practicing to be content, or we maybe are trying to get X, Y, Z, A, B, C, so they'll be happy forever. And all those nonsense fairy tales, happily ever after, it's just complete delusion. Like, that is not how it works. You're going to die. Hello? Hello? We're going to die. Everyone you love.
Wake up, Neo.
Exactly. Exactly. It's unavoidable. No one gets out of this alive. I love that phrase. A couple of things are showing up to share right now. One is the 5 remembrances. And so they show up both in the Theravada and the Mahayana tradition. I have my own translation that I use. It pulls both from the Amravati chanting book, which is Ajahn Chah's monastery in England. There are many English-speaking branch monasteries of Ajahn Chah, and they all use the same chanting book from Amravati. I've practiced a lot at Abhayagiri here in California. And the translations from Thich Nhat Hanh and Plum Village for the 5 remembrances, or sometimes are called the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to have ill health. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I cannot escape death. Everyone I love and all I hold dear is of the nature to change. I cannot escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. They are the ground on which I stand. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. So those are the 5 remembrances. And then the first 2 verses of the Dhammapada, which maybe is the first collection of teachings of the Buddha. There are different ideas about what the Dhammapada is, but it's lots of short things. All experience is led by heart-mind, made by heart-mind, preceded by heart-mind. Act or speak with a defiled state of heart-mind, and suffering follows as the cartwheel follows the hoof of the ox. All experience is made by heart-mind, born of heart-mind, preceded by heart-mind. Act or speak with a pure state of heart-mind, and happiness follows as your shadow follows you without departing. Those 2 teachings of the Buddha, coupled with one of the gathas from Thich Nhat Hanh, waking up I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and look at all beings with eyes of compassion. Those 3 teachings, beginning with the one from Thich Nhat Hanh that I just offered, and then the 5 remembrances, followed by the first 2 verses of the Dhammapada, I've been saying to myself in the morning, at the beginning of meditation, or at the end of meditation, or in lieu of meditation, depending on how my day is going, for some years now. Since a while before my mom died. My mom died in the fall of 2023. I had it in me. It's changed how my mind works, changed how my heart works. It's changed how I move through my days. So it's not just meditation, but it's also wisdom reflections, or exposing yourself to the Dhamma that get in there and do their magic. And then having friends on the path, spiritual friends that you can be intimate with, to share the inner workings of your heart mind, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. That's the path of practice. And yeah, you can try to find me. I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach out to Augusta at augustahopkins.com, or at augustahopkins.org. And my business site, which I'm phasing out, is mindfulnessforstressreduction.com. But why don't you just try augustahopkins.com or augustahopkins.org? They'll route you over there in the meantime. I am heading on into retreat again pretty soon. A week at Spirit Rock, and then a month at the Forest Refuge at Insight Meditation Society. So you won't be able to reach me, but I'd love to hear from you. And occasionally I post things to YouTube, and I think a search for Augusta Hopkins on YouTube might yield those, or SF Sangha, or Spiritual Friends Sangha. So lots of spots. There's definitely an Instagram profile and a Facebook profile, and there's no content, or very little content up there, because I am not a fan. Yeah, and I'm very interested in supporting individuals where they are. And as I said, I feel like a little Dharma bee. I get to go out on retreat and meet with teachers, and then ingest that and spread the honey around Gussie style. And for some people, that's more available, more accessible. Because I grew up in the city. I'm very urban. I grew up in the heart of Philadelphia, and I'm keeping my mouth pretty clean for the podcast, but that's not my habit.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and for coming on here. I will put all the links to how people can find you that you just mentioned in the show notes if anybody wants to explore further.
I hope that this time together is beneficial for everyone who listens. And thank you so much, Noga, for inviting me and your patience in scheduling. It's been my pleasure to get to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for tuning in. If this episode resonated, send it to a friend, share it in your stories, or take a moment to rate the podcast and subscribe. It genuinely helps this little baby podcast grow organically and reach to the people that it needs to reach. I really appreciate every comment and every review. And as always, if you want to go deeper, my course, retreat, and free resources are all linked below. This is your healing era. Take care, and I'll see you next time.